We're tied 1-1 at the moment, and that means that in a best of 3, whoever takes this third and final map will advance forward. The loser eliminated from tonight's Go 4 Cup, and that's some pretty bad news for them. Anyway, down to the lower left-hand position, we've got the yellow Protoss player playing for Alien Invasion. It is CPU. And his opponent up to the top right, the blue Terran, playing for Cascade. It's ArotaX. ArotaX was able to take the first map in this series, whereas CPU leveled it out in that last game with a beautiful push through the middle. So both of these two have shown that they can go for some very strong timings. Both of them have shown that they've got some pretty sweet play, some nice little trickery up their sleeves. I'm going to be excited to see what's entirely in store for both of them in this game, because both of them have actually switched up their playstyle quite significantly compared to, or in each of the games so far. ArotaX in game 1 was very aggressive, went for a massive 2-base all-in, whereas in game number 3 played it a lot more economically focused. Opening the same way as in game 1 and 2 though, likely with this Reaper. Meanwhile, from CPU, 1 Gate, 1 Gas, 1 Pylon, half a Noah's Ark, and he's just going to be playing a very similar style to how he did. Although, in TVP, you're unlikely to get too much variation overall, just because, well, both of the players are going to be quite happy. This second gas is new, actually, from CPU. Unless my memory fails me, I don't think that this was taken this early in the first or second game. And that actually is pretty cool. Only 2 gases in there at the moment. Only 2 drones in the gas at the moment. We'll wait to see whether he goes up to 4 or 6. If he goes up to 6, it'll be a really gas-heavy opening. So, still waiting, still checking. See what these two have got planned. Reaper is, of course, coming on out. There's a little cleaning bot, making sure that ArotaX's base is nice and clean. I like the little cleaning bot. I have a little cleaning vacuum robot. He wanders around. Not quite that degree of movement, and definitely doesn't have a propeller on its back, but still it does a good job. I call him Chives. He's my little vacuum butler. Anyway, enough about robots and more about StarCraft. We've got Natural CC coming on down. Meanwhile, still just sitting on 4 gases for CPU there, who is chrono boosting out his Stalker. The reason for this is that he has delayed his Mothership core slightly. He's going to be chrono boosting that as well by getting the second gas a little bit quicker. So he still wants to be able to defend against this Reaper that I suspect he'll be expecting. Reaper may actually be able to get a probe kill here if it is controlled nicely. Just working away at a few. Stalker and Mothership core are now out on the field though. These 2 probes quickly running away. We'll be able to escape, and the Reaper has to back away. But of course, the Reaper doesn't die. Means that it can just go shoot up a little bit of drugs and be back to full health in double quick time. Mothership core is trying to chase it. Stalker's also following through. ArotaX continuing on to the same build that he did actually in game number 1. Rather than going for the much quicker gases or the engineering bay, he's going for the 3 barracks in total. So just keeping everything nice and steady, nice and safe. Could lead into some more aggression, could also just be to be very safe. We do have the bunker coming down at the front, and that's due to this area being incredibly wide open, and also the Stalker already having been seen. That SCV not going to get taken down. There's just a few too many Marines to be able to finish that off with the Stalker without risking it dying. Nice little block with the Reaper actually, but there's the second Stalker coming on through. The bunker is completed though, and that means that there's a nice little hidey hole for those Marines to dive on into, preventing them from really being at too much risk from this early poking of CPU. CPU now is continuing his tech on up, going into the robotics facility. Natural base is a little bit later than we've seen in the other games, but not by too much of a substantial amount. Bunker now down at the front. We've got second gases coming on through. Again, stim before combat shield or concussive shell. So ArotaX really gunning for that mid-game power spike as opposed to the early game ability to try and nab a couple of Stalkers. Reaper gets a really good scout out there for ArotaX. He was actually able to see the fact that there was the robotic facility there, knows what kind of tech is coming down from his opponent, knows the timing of this natural base. That's really important for ArotaX and may influence what he decides to do next. He's adding in that engineering bay and going for a factory too, so some early medevacs definitely looking to be on the cards. Probably one of the most interesting things for the moment at least is that we didn't get that early move out that we saw in game number 1 and 2 from ArotaX, and one of the big reasons that could be is that Foxtrot Labs is huge. It's quite a large map. Running across here would take a fair bit of time, and so hitting that early timing where maybe you could catch your Protoss opponent off guard isn't too likely. So instead, ArotaX just waiting back and just getting a few more units out than he had before. May still go for a move out once Stim Pack is finished. Only time will tell on that. I'm also actually quite glad that he's not going for the earlier move out around that 8-minute hit. And the reason being is that in previous times when he's gone for that, he lost everything, or at least all of the Marines, when he was trying to retreat, because he didn't have Concussive Shell, couldn't stop the Stalkers, kiting them away, and so took substantial losses. This time though, CPU sitting here with the 3 sentries. Should be able to get some good force fields. Of course, this observer was able to see the move out of units, so CPU ready and waiting. Able to pick up a couple of units, will be able to get himself a Marauder or 2. There's the move up the ramp, 2 force fields will block a couple more Marines, and all in all, 100% efficient trade from CPU there, and ArotaX loses 525 resources for the cost of 2 force fields, which is not really too much to spare for CPU. All in all, that push didn't really achieve much. CPU now just moving in, going to get some scout sees. The timing of this starport, knows that the first few medevacs will be out on the field shortly. It also gets a good peek at things like the racks count. Hasn't yet been able to see the engineering bay, not going back there, so doesn't know about the fact that +1 is nearly completed. But if he does choose to click on one of these infantry units, would be able to see the +1s finished in about 7 seconds. Importantly for CPU, he's got his first Colossus down on the field. He's also adding in his extended thermal lance upgrade, plus a couple of additional gateways coming into the mix. All in all, he's only had 3 gates for the moment, so adding in 3 more going up to 6 isn't too insane. No third base, so he's not playing it too greedy in terms of his economy. Instead, he's just maximizing the amount of units on the field he can get at this moment, and a lot of that is just due to ArotaX showing quite a favoritism to being very aggressive in this game. Also taking a third base, you have to knock down these rocks and come down to the side, because this base is just quite a long way away. You can go and take it, but again, it's exposed to drops if you're trying to defend these 2 positions, whereas coming over here, you're a bit safer. Already this debris getting taken on down. We've got ArotaX pushing down the right-hand side, just wanting to really check and see if the third base has been taken. This could be a bit of a problem though. ArotaX doesn't know that this push is coming on through. The Colossus from behind, the medevacs may end up having to pick up. Force field comes on down, traps a lot of this infantry. ArotaX is in a huge amount of trouble there. CPU getting himself a good amount of damage. 1,600 resources lost for our Terran. CPU losing nothing yet. This is the kind of efficiency you only dream of in trades when you're 11.5 minutes through the game, and with a proxy pylon already placed, this follow-up push is going to be devastatingly effective if ArotaX can't get a beautiful defensive position up fast. 4 medevacs are on the field, should be getting a couple of Vikings out, but only 3 of them up against a lot of Stalkers. There's a scan just to get a big look at this. SCV's already getting pulled. CPU doesn't have to move in here. He's already in a solid spot. Knows that his opponent doesn't have a third base, I believe. If I just double check that I'm right in thinking that. He's got the observer. Takes it all looks. He's the first few Vikings coming on down. This may deter CPU from moving through. Just coming from a different angle, actually. For the moment, ArotaX can't see this, and this allows CPU to get into a fairly strong position. Escaping out of this would be tough, though. The Stalkers need to focus down the Vikings, make sure that the Colossus are going to be safe. SCV's attempting to get pulled, but it's not working. Quite a lot of the infantry getting zoned out. CPU retreating back into this choke. A couple of sentries are there, but they get picked off before many force fields can get down. CPU takes his first losses of the game, but deals out as good as he gets. A fairly equal trade, I'd say, for the most part. But the Colossus remain alive. A 4th one coming to join into this mix. The Stalker count at 11. There's another Guardian Shield. And the trades are going to continue on through. ArotaX losing quite a lot of his infantry at the moment. The Stalkers trying to focus down the Vikings. That's allowing the Colossus to stand up. The first one will finally fall, but ArotaX is taking some significant losses. Trying to chip away at everything else there. 1 Viking remains, but there's the GG, well played. And CPU is going to be able to take this series 2-1 and will advance on into the semi-finals.